what interests me about meeting someone like you is I feel like your strategy is different than what I've felt like I'm capable of in the past. And I think it's just a different strategy because you start a company and then you're doing social media, you got a podcast, you got a different YouTube channel, you got a different company, you're doing real estate. And me, I'm like, yo, if I divide my focus, I won't get anything done. So like, is that something that you feel like is just your personality, or is it something you've had to work on yourself? Like what motivates you to just start another thing and another thing and another thing?
Yeah, I mean, I love the question. I think for me, I'm in my heart, like I'm a serial entrepreneur. It's very.
What does that mean when you say that?
I think it means that like I probably like the best way to describe it would be like I can't slow down ever. Like when I slow down, I'm depressed. Like honestly, like if I chill and watch Netflix for like an hour, I genuinely feel like a failure. Like I could have millions of dollars in liquid cash in my checking account, watch Netflix for an hour and feel like a total failure. Right. And so, you know, for me, it's more about like the moving, right? Like I got to go all the time. And if I'm only doing one or two things, it doesn't keep me busy enough, right? I got to be busy. I got to go. Yeah. And so I don't start like a new thing all the time. You know, I try like, so to your question, I guess I have had to work on that, right? Because if I just say yes to every opportunity, that's not good either. Like you don't want to do that either, right? You don't and so for me, I got to be very careful. I can't spread myself too thin. And I think what has allowed me to do what I'm able to do is it's just my team, bro. Like honest and truly, like if I didn't have the team that I had, I wouldn't be able to do 10% of what I do. Like straight up, right? Like 100 times out of 100, you know what I mean? So, you know, I think if you want to do more than one thing, you just have to have a good team. You know, you can't do it by yourself. You just can't, right? Like it's not going to happen, right? And so, you know, that's why I do think like starting with one thing, I think Gary Vee talks about it, right? And there's even a book called like The One Thing, you know, I think it's even a real estate book. But you
it's
know,
written by Keller Williams.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I haven't read it in a long time, but I knew it was like somebody like that.
Yeah.
But you know, at the end of the day, like I think that concept is valid, right? I think in the beginning, as an entrepreneur, you should do one thing, because I think if right off the bat, like you try to do 7 different things, you're gonna fail. Yeah. Right? Like it's too difficult. You know what I mean? But I think if you master one thing, you start making revenue, right? And you got revenue coming in. You have enough revenue to hire somebody that's really good that you can delegate a lot of that work to.
Yeah.
Then, you know, that kind of serves a dual purpose. Now you're contributing to society, right? You're getting to feed another family. You're getting to delegate, right? You're getting to learn the actual art of entrepreneurship and then how that all works. And then you're able to kind of pivot and focus a little bit of your energy, even if it's 10% or 20% of your energy on a new venture, a new project or whatever, that maybe even goes hand in hand with your first thing that you're doing, right? You know, if you look at my life, I have, you know, 2 real estate companies, an ATM company, which is essentially real estate if you look at it, right? I own the real estate and I control the paperwork, right?
Got it.
It's just real estate is all it is. And then I do marketing, right? So in a nutshell, I do real estate and marketing. So it's not like I own you know, a restaurant and a real estate company and like a, you know, an aquarium, right, where I sell like goldfish and stuff like that. You know, I try to be very careful of what I take on, right?
Got it.
But it is the team. So sorry for the long answer. To anybody and to you or whoever, right, that is looking to like do it really big, just like get good people, man.
Yeah.
I guess the best thing. It's the hardest thing too, by the way, to do. Like you'll never do anything.
I was going to ask you that. That was going to be my follow-up, because that's been my struggle, is finding competent people who are good, but who are also motivated to work for me.
Right.
And I guess my experience of building the team is something that it's probably the next skill I'm working on, is building my team out. But I've had different people, like I went through 3 video editors in 1 month last year because just none of them were paying any attention to the detail the way that I would. And I felt like even that's kind of a mistake, like doing it the way that I would, which is something that I had to learn the hard way. Right. And then the boot camp I kind of briefly mentioned, I had a whole team and we all went out to a team dinner afterwards. And it was just like they were there working for me basically that weekend. And then I had a closer and that was essentially it. And then like someone to help me like with the assistant stuff. But I wouldn't have been able to do the boot camp without the team. Right. But for me, it's like, how do you find the good quality people? Is it you just pay for them, or where do you look for them? And I almost wonder, like, did you get good at building teams because of your recruiting experience from MLM?
Wow. Yeah. Really fire questions, by the way. I love the questions you're asking. You know, I think, man, I mean, look, here's the thing. Like we talked about in the beginning, right? Success for me has not been linear. So I till this very day, to be very clear, I still make a lot of mistakes, even with this particular subject. You know, And I definitely am not perfect. I will say I've hired hundreds and hundreds of people. You know what I mean? If not, yeah, like for sure, hundreds and hundreds. So, and a lot of mistakes have happened through that process, right? I think for me, like paying them is definitely something I think you can do. You can outpay your competition. And what you can do there, by the way, you'll be really uncomfortable when you do this. So if you decide to do it this way, you can do it this way. You will be uncomfortable in the beginning, right? Because you're actually going to be overpaying for, and you're probably not going to really have the revenue at the time, right? Because you're going to need somebody before you're like, and it's always that like weird like time, right?
It's probably at the phase where I'm at
Sure.
right now.
Yeah, and it's really difficult. You're like you're trying to figure it out. You're like, well, I could just like outsource it to a VA, or I could like, you're trying to make this decision. But at the end of the day, it isn't easy. I will say, if you do pay a lot of money, you can get talent that'll bring a lot of value to you that you never even thought existed. So I've hired people before where, they were so good in just life and whatever area, that I was looking to hire in, that they brought so much value to me. I didn't even know that existed. Like I'll hire people where, they will be like, they'll come to the table with the table. And it's like, I wasn't even expecting that. Right. So there is something to be said about that. And I think that is a really good way to do it. I think not paying people enough is definitely, look, at the end of the day, we live in a world powered by an economy, right? All monetary, everything that we do is monetary, right? Everything, it's the exchange of money, that's just the reality of the world we live in. So, if you don't pay enough money, people aren't gonna, they're eventually gonna they're gonna be over it, right?
Yeah.
If you overpay, people are gonna struggle leaving you. Right, because even if there's something they don't like, or maybe the environment's not quite on point, or maybe whatever the case is, they're gonna look at their paycheck and they're gonna have a hard time leaving you, right? And I'm not saying that like take that for what it's worth, right? But I do think there is something to be said about there, and genuinely like hooking people up, like making it a win-win, right? I mean, other than that, man, like I just think finding good people in general, that have integrity, that do the right thing, like. That's how I really look for anymore.
Values.
The right values. Yeah, like if they don't have the same values as you, it's not going to work. I've hired so many people where they were great at sales, so they were great on the phone, you know what I mean? But their values weren't there, unfortunately, right? Doesn't make them bad people. Their values just didn't align with our values. And they were great on the phone. They were great at sales. But ultimately, a lot of times they had an ulterior motive, or they just didn't last long in general. They wanted to go do their own thing. They wanted to go become my competition, right? And that's not always a bad thing. But at the end of the day, you're trying to build a company, right? You're not trying to train your competition. So I think finding people that have good values, good morals, you'll ultimately, hopefully your retainment, like you'll be able to retain a lot of those people, right? Your retention rate, I guess you might say.
Na na na